My name is Lauren Cañafranca, and I'm an accredited financial counselor Canada. So when I work with clients, my hope is to help people to create something that's more sustainable and more of a reciprocal relationship with their money. So I think identifying areas that you overspend in is one of the best first steps to approaching increasing money in your budget and being able to save a little bit more regularly. Here are 5 things that you can do to reduce overspending in the new year. A great way to approach your money, as opposed to wants and needs, is to look at money in terms of emotional and non-emotional spending. Emotional spending are things that have an increased risk of overspending. They have no deadline and no consequence if you don't spend on them. So these are things like clothing and gifts and eating out. And non-emotional spending are things that usually have a deadline and a consequence if you don't pay them. And there's no emotional lift, there's no dopamine when you spend more. So the best way to reduce overspending on the emotional spending is to separate that spending into a different account. When it comes to emotional spending, ensuring that you have an account where you can spend downward rather than upward is really important to help you to be aware of how much you have and how much you've spent. So for example, a debit card or a prepaid credit card product that maybe alerts you when you spend versus something like a credit card where you can spend upward and lose track. When you're first sort of making an adjustment to how you spend, keeping track, it can be really important, and it can be as simple as writing things down as you spend them. I would have most of my clients start is by gathering all of their financial information. All of the bills that you pay weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, even quarterly and annually, so that you have a real idea of how much it costs to run your household every month. Another great step is automating, if you're able, the bills that come up regularly for you, so that you're not having to use up your decision-making throughout the day to something that can be delegated to AI. So at the beginning of the year, it's really easy to make very lofty goals. And I would encourage you to pull it back and make sure that it's a reasonable goal and that you focus on one thing at a time. You know, the more that we're looking at cutting back spending in 15 places, the less likely we'll be successful in the long term, and the less likely we'll get sustainable results and avoid being in this exact same situation next year. In order to be really successful with a budget, regardless of how you make your money, try to only plan with the money that you have in your bank account right now, as opposed to what you anticipate getting in the future. Unexpected things can come up and emergencies arise, and sometimes what we anticipate receiving isn't what actually hits our bank account, and then we find ourselves in a deficit. So I always recommend to use only what you have on hand, and as money comes in, make a new plan versus forecasting forward. If you want to learn more, a great website to visit is the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada's website. What else is great is it's going to give you lots of suggestions for things that you might not have thought of if you're just getting started with a budget. If you're looking to work with someone one-on-one, I recommend checking if they are an AFCC or an Accredited Financial Counselor Canada. That will let you know that they have a high ethical standard of practice and a fiduciary responsibility to you to ensure that they're acting in your best interest.